Hello class, welcome back again to English with Geronimo. For today's topic, we're going to tackle about figures of speech. Figures of speech are words or phrase that makes a comparison between seemingly unlike things. For example, he collapsed onto the grass like a half-empty flour sack. You'll come across figures of speech or figurative language in poetry, in prose, and in everyday speaking and writing. Figures of speech are not literally true. It makes imaginative connection. Sometimes it expresses meaning in fresh and original ways, often acts as a kind of a shorthand. Now, some figures of speech have become part of our everyday language. We don't even think about the fact that they aren't literally true. For example, he didn't notice how quickly the time flew by. My heart leapt at the thought. She must have gotten tied up in traffic. His room is a pigsty. Now let's have the simile as the first figures of speech. It is a comparison between two unlike things using a word such as like, as, than, or resemble. For example, a lone oak tree stood in the front yard like an aged but dedicated sentry. The dew on the leaves glistened as brilliantly as loose diamonds on silk. Next example. That child's eyes are warmer than the summer's sand beach. So these are some of the examples of simile. Now let's have a quick check. Now let us identify the two similes in this excerpt and also what the meaning is expressed by each simile. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to answer, and then later on I'm going to check the answers. The answers are: her talk comes out as smooth and sleek as breasts of singing birds. Also, her speech is as 1,000 eyes through which we see the earth. That's the answers. Now, what are the meaning of those similes? The first sentence, she has a beautiful soothing voice. And then the second one, the mother's words influence the children's perception of the world. Now, let's proceed with metaphor. Metaphor is a comparison between two unlike things in which one becomes the other. It does not use the words such as like or as. For example, the flood waters rose and the river became ravenous monster, raging on for hours and consumed everything in its sight. Now, the metaphor poets use metaphors to make the reader think about the new ways of seeing things. What is the poet trying to say with this metaphor? My heart, it was a floating bird that through the world did wander free, but he has locked it in a cage and lost the silver key. It is from the Prince. Metaphor, there are two metaphors. A direct metaphor directs compares two things using a verb as if his ideas were flock of birds in flight, and also an indirect metaphor implies or suggests the comparison. For example, his ideas spread their wings and soared freely. So these are two kinds of metaphors. Now let's have a quick check. Let's identify each metaphor as direct or indirect. I'll give you a few minutes to answer. Identify each metaphor. The answers are: first sentence would be a direct metaphor. The second one is indirect metaphor. Also, the third sentence is indirect metaphor. And the last sentence is direct metaphor. Next would be personification. It's a special kind of metaphor in which human qualities are given to something that is not human. An animal, an object, or an idea. Now, for example, the sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. This is from Walrus and Carpenters. Now, let's have a quick review. Identify each figures of speech. Is a simile, it is a metaphor, or personification. I'll give you a few minutes to answer. Let's check your answers. So the first sentence is a kind of personification. The second would be a simile. The third is a kind of metaphor. Now, for your assignment and another practice at home, figures of speech are widely used. Look through a newspaper or magazine, including the advertisements. Gather at least 6 of speech. Then look for examples of similes, personification, and metaphors. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, bye. Metaphor.
Do you want to know?